on.
Oh, there she is. Great. Okay.
We're live. We're good to go.
Great. Let me just, Barbara, can you hear us?
Yep.
Oh, great. Okay. So I'd like to call this planning board meeting to order Wednesday, October 14th. We have a quorum of Jim, Barbara, Johnny, and myself. And is that you, Jeff?
Yep, Jeff was here.
Okay, Jeff, well, we're welcoming a new member tonight, Jeff Erskine, and thank you for joining us. And we have our secretary, Susan, and town planner, Max Johnstone is here. Hold on one second. Okay. So are there any citizen comments apart from the pre-application for the solar farm that we're hearing about tonight? Okay, there being none. Is there any old business, Max, or any of the board members that we need to deal with tonight?
No old business other than the minutes, but you asked to have that done after the pre-application.
Yeah, let's do that after the pre-apps. Okay. So under new business, we have a pre-application for a solar farm. And who will be talking to us about that on behalf of the solar farm?
I will.
Catherine.
Yep,
Okay.
Catherine Garrard.
Okay, great. So would you like to, or could you start us off with a summary of this?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. And you are Simpson, is that correct, Chairman
I am.
Simpson? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us. My name is Catherine Garrard. I'm with Power Engineers in Freeport, Maine. We are the engineering firm that has done the wetlands delineation and natural resource assessment for this project, and also assisting with the permitting. Also here from Power is my colleague Cole Peters, and from Sincarfa Solar is Mike Atkinson, who will also be providing some information about the company itself.
Okay.
So Max, I don't know if you're able to share the map, and maybe while Max is doing that, we appreciate this opportunity just to present an overview of the proposed solar project, and have a few questions, and hopefully you can answer your questions that may come up as we talk about this.
Okay.
So along with the map that Max is showing, I believe members of the planning board have received a document titled Waldoboro Solar 1 LLC project description. And I'll speak to the map, but refer to this document as I'm speaking, because it has sort of all the good pieces to say about the project. Okay. This is a preliminary for discussion purpose only map of the proposed solar project site. You can see that originally it was our wetlands map that we developed, and the wetlands are mapped here in green. There's also a stream in blue and delineated flood zone. To orient you, to the right is Controversy Lane, and obviously out of the map picture would be North Nobleboro Road. So on this parcel, which is actually two parcels, approximately 65 acres, the solar project is outlined here in yellow. This is about a 4.95 megawatt ground mounted photovoltaic solar array. And essentially those are tables that are installed in the ground, and solar panels are placed on top of them. This is a fixed solar array. That go along with the panels. Obviously, there's electrical conduit. There are pieces of equipment called inverters, and a few small transformers that would be on concrete pads also as part of this project. The energy that is generated is transported to Controversy Lane, which would be the access, and then would be on distribution poles, similar to what you see on roadsides, and fed out to the three-phase power that is on North Nobleboro Road, operated by CMP. As you know, solar energy is a renewable source of energy. It's a very clean source of energy. You've already permitted and have a similar solar project under construction in Waldoboro. They are safe and quiet, do not produce emissions, noise, glare, or light. This solar project will be operated as a community shared solar, and that enables Waldoboro residents and other residents in the area to purchase discount utility credits from Waldoboro Solar One, the project, that can be applied to their Central Maine Power bill. Obviously, you would need to be a Central Maine Power customer to take advantage of that. We are still finalizing the exact configuration of the solar project. We have yet to submit an application to the state, which we need to do. We will be submitting a stormwater permit by rule application. We are in the process of doing that. And essentially, we're here tonight to answer questions that you may have about the project and hopefully get some information to help us with our permitting efforts. I do want to point out before we go to discussion that the solar arrays outlined in yellow here, the yellow dotted lines, will not change from the location they are in, and they've been carefully located so they are not impacting wetlands, streams. This is not shoreline zone, nor is it in the floodplain.
Is that yellow dotted line the limit of what is going to be cleared, the limit of the panels, a fence? What does that exactly delineate?
Yes, that is the approximate delineation of the, I'd say, the fence that would surround the solar arrays.
Okay.
And Chairman Simpson, I'm sorry, before I go any further, I neglected to introduce Mike Atkinson, and he is the representative from Sincarfa, and I know would like to tell you about the company. So if you would have a few minutes for Mike to speak.
Sure.
Okay, that's great. Sorry, Mike.
No worries, Kathy. A lot of information tonight. Yeah, thank you for letting us come before you this evening. As Kathy mentioned, my name is Mike Atkinson. I am a project developer with Sincarfa Solar. We are a long-term owner and operator of solar projects, primarily in the Northeast, Massachusetts, New Jersey, upstate New York. But we do have a few projects as far west as New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada, and then also some down in the Carolinas. We're different from a lot of solar developers because, while some companies will develop or construct these projects and then sell them to an investor, our main business model is to be the investor, to be the long-term owner and operator of these projects. We plan to be around for at least the initial 20-year term, the 20-year contract that we'll be entering into with Central Maine Power, and then potentially beyond that if the project will allow. We really don't have an interest in selling this to another entity. We have an asset management team that will remotely monitor the site every day to make sure that there are no issues on the site, nothing that needs to be repaired. And we hope that the same phone number that you would call with any questions would be our phone number now and be the phone number you'd call in 20 years. As Kathy mentioned, our goal here is to have this be a community solar farm so that local residents can purchase bill credits at a discount to offset typically a 10% discount on their current Central Maine power bill. And it's approximately right now, the outline that you see there in yellow is right now around 18 acres. This boundary is not likely to change, just given the proximity of the wetlands and our desire to stay below a 20-acre threshold.
Oh, what's the 20 acre? What is that 28-acre threshold kick off if you go over that?
A state permit.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The site law of development permit. So there's really no chance of this project being larger than that.
Okay.
Johnny Cosno here in Waldeboro. At the risk of sounding somewhat naive, how does Sid Carpa make its revenue? How do you garner your profits from the project?
We will enter into a 20-year power purchase agreement with Central Maine Power. So they will be buying the electricity from us, and we will then have folks purchase bill credits at a 90% discount, or I'm sorry, at 90% of what they're currently paying, so that they can offset 10% of their electric bill.
And do you have any idea, I've always wondered about this with solar farms. Do you have any idea how much energy you're going to produce? That is to say, in the summer, say you had 3 months of nothing but brilliant sunshine, or it rained for 2 months straight.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers in front of me right now. Even on a cloudy day, even when it's raining, this solar farm is still producing electricity. It's like how you can still get a sunburn on a cloudy day at the beach. It's still absorbing photovoltaic arrays. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't give you those numbers this evening in terms of daily production. But we do calculate that down to an hourly basis as we get further along in the engineering of the project.
Thank you.
So, Catherine or Michael, do you have any other comments you wanted to add before we open for more questions?
None from my end, Kathy.
I do have some questions, but they're mostly about your land use ordinance and that type of question. So I could
Okay.
save those. I could save those for later if you'd like, or
Okay.
ask now.
Let's see if any of the board members have questions.
I've
Jim?
got a few, sure.
Go ahead.
Let's start with the power connection from the farm along Controversy Lane out to North Nobleboro Road. Will that be on new poles or existing poles?
In terms of the poles themselves, I'm not sure what CMP will choose to do. I believe they'll be upgraded, and I know for certain that they will go from single-phase poles to 3-phase poles. But I'm not sure if the physical pole that's in the ground right now will be switched out or not. But the number of wires on them will go from 1 to 3.
So the CMP interfaces is basically at the inverters, and CMP then gets it out to their three-phase line as they want to?
Our connection right now would be with CMP at the intersection of Sunset Road and Controversy Lane. We might have some flexibility to connect depending on CMP's service line, where their service actually ends further down along Controversy Lane, closer to our site. But right now our application has the point of interconnection at the intersection of Sunset Road and Controversy Lane, and we would be responsible for getting the power to that location. Their three-phase is what starts on North Nobleboro Road. But they still have the lines there along Controversy Lane. They just need to be upgraded to a greater extent than the ones on North Nobleboro. Those are already existing three-phase lines.
So is that already been negotiated with CMP, or is that part of your ultimate contract for them to upgrade those lines?
Yes, we're in the process of doing that now. We have gone through the interconnection study process and received a system impact study telling us, what is going to need to be upgraded and where. But we're in the process of signing that agreement now, and once we have that agreement in place, hopefully in the next week or so, we'll be able to enter into that power purchase agreement, like I mentioned, where we'd be selling net energy billing credits through them.
Okay.
Notice that you're going to set up Waldoboro Solar One LLC. I assume Sincarfa is the sole owner of that, 100% owner?
Yes. So I believe it's Sincarfa Capital would be the owner. Sincarfa Solar is another one of our development entity. Sincarfa Capital, as I mentioned, is the investor and owner operator of these projects.
Why is it set up as a separate company?
It just makes it easier for the development of these projects. We have to track every dollar we spend. Every invoice can go through the Sincarfa Waldoboro entity. We also worked with a development partner who I believe is also on this call, Rayo Bumgara of Sustainable Strategies 2050. I believe he's the one who initially set up the Waldoboro Solar entity in order to have us develop it with him, and we purchased that entity from him about a year or so ago.
Okay. Let's stay on that train for a second. 20 years. Let's say that's the end of the useful life of the solar farm. Walk away, tear it down, restore the ground, the earth to its existing state. What happens to it long term?
Right, and part of our application package will include a decommissioning plan outlining exactly how the equipment will be removed. We've done that for a number of towns in the state that we're going through permitting with, as well as most of our projects in Maine. But it would be the owner of the project's responsibility to remove that equipment, sell it for its scrap value, and as you mentioned, restore the property as best we can. Obviously, we can't put the trees back, but we can take out all of the equipment.
I'd also expect or hope to see a requirement a statement that requirement would be assignable or have to be assigned to any future owner of the development. It's one thing to have it in your application that Sincarfa could then, investments could then, or capital could then sell this to someone else. and depending upon what gets transferred and what obligations, I'd like to make, they may not have to do that. I'd like to make sure that that is an obligation that gets transferred to any future owner.
Yes, of course.
I have some questions. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
So I can't really read this map terribly well. It's a little fuzzy for me. Tell me about the grade. Is it, it's sloping up away from the road towards the up? So there's a lower solar and a higher solar in elevation. Is that right? Or is it back? Is it the other way around?
Yes, I believe the elevation is slightly lower there at the southern end of the southern yellow outline, and it slopes to the north.
So it's only a 1 foot elevation line you've got on here? I mean, what elevations, what's the difference in the elevation lines?
Hello, this is Cliff Peters. I might be able to answer some of those questions.
Okay,
These are 10-foot contours.
10 foot, okay.
And this is, I guess I just want to emphasize that this is extremely preliminary in terms of the level of information providing, and that we would provide detailed plans probably at a 1 or a 2 foot contour interval. And so the terrain here, there's a stream course that flows essentially from the north to the south across the site.
Right.
And the general contours would slope towards that. And then in between the upper solar area, the smaller of the two, that sort of green shape, wetland, and that would be lower in elevation than the two solar areas. So there's sort of a tributary drainage course. Doesn't have a stream in it, but it drains towards that blue stream that crosses the center of the site.
Okay, and what do you, what does this assume for the setback off the road and the other property lines? What are you working with this yellow line?
Well, there at the bottom right corner of the plan, you'll see a bar scale.
Okay,
Length of the bar is 400 feet. So what's depicted now along the northeasterly property line is 60 feet, I believe.
50 feet.
Yes, but again, we want to emphasize that this is a very preliminary plan, and we would show the respective setback distances from the property lines.
so driving along Controversy, once you've removed the trees that are necessary to get sunlight in there, you would very much see this solar array, right? As you're driving by?
Kathy was actually there on Friday, so I'll let her continue with the conversation.
Okay.
Well, good question. As you're driving down Controversy, as you can see, the road comes down. The solar arrays would be to your right. So they're off at an angle here. So if you're driving down Controversy, there's a lot of intervening trees and vegetation and homes, especially in those abutting properties on Sunset that have a significant buffer behind them. That would remain. So I think if you drove all the way down Controversy Lane and got as far as you could on the access road, yes, you'd be able to see them. But I don't think just driving down the road, they would be immediately visible.
Yes,
That a dead-end road? Is that dead end, or does that loop back to, I don't even know how that road works.
I'd just like to point out, Controversy Lane does end before it gets to the yellow outline there. What you're seeing sort of as a road is actually the railroad tracks.
Okay.
Yeah, Controversy Lane ends there, sort of peters out into one of the existing subdivision lots there. Our understanding from the current property owner that will be purchasing this land from is that these two parcels were for a planned subdivision that he no longer is moving forward with, but that, you know, access is deeded down there through the continuation of Controversy Lane to the property. So in order to see the site from Controversy Lane, you'd have to go all the way to the end to where it would turn into this project.
Okay.
So I can speak from prior experience with looking at other applications for solar farms, that if there is any plan to take away the trees on the, what would it be, the northeast side, that abutting that the house lots, that wouldn't be met favorably by the neighbors, I think, or the planning board. That's 50 feet is really thin in terms of a buffer. You can see right through the trees at 50 feet. And you should have plans to make sure that that buffer is maintained.
Yes, you know, our plan would be in that setback from the property line to maintain the existing vegetation.
Oh, Michael, I bring it up only because in the last one we looked at, if that's the fence line and the panels are close to the fence line, sometimes you have to take trees outside the fence line to make sure you have enough daylight. So that's the only reason we bring it up. I bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of folks will do that, take trees outside of the fence line. But as I mentioned, in order to stay under the 20 acres, clearing trees counts as developed area, and you know, we'd like to stay under that. So you know, we realize we will have some shading impacts at certain points during the day, but the vegetation outside of our fence line, we do plan to keep intact.
Because I think we're all getting at the same thing. That was related to my earlier question about what the yellow dotted line represents is what's really matters to us, I think, in this case for the setback. Obviously the fence and where the panels are, but the key issue is, I think, what Jim was talking about is the setback that we're really concerned with is what's the buffer of trees, et cetera, between the solar panels themselves and the fence and the abutters.
And
Max?
can't we assume there might be future abutters in these other properties to the south and to the, yeah, basically towards the south. So along the road, I mean, does the same property owner own additional land beyond this that he might do something with at some point?
As far as the land that is to the southeast of the train tracks,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure who owns that. Everything you see here outlined in red that has had the wetlands delineated are part of the two parcels here that we're purchasing, and we have no plans to develop the land to the southwest of that blue yellow line. I'm sorry, the blue shaded line.
Question.
Yeah, please.
Cold figures again. If I could just add some clarifying points. You know, I think it is important to just consider again what Mike referred to, that sort of curve shape that you see angling from the top right corner down to the middle is actually the railroad. And so, you know, Controversy Lane is sort of identified parallel to the railroad up above the word access, and it appears on your town tax maps. as being recognized. But below the word access, along the course of that white line, it is not identified on the tax maps. Nonetheless, the footprint of the road is at that location. It follows the white line. And then, at the intersection of Sunset, it continues sort of like a driveway across those two properties. And it dead ends in effect at the red project boundary. In terms of the comment about potential development south of the site or west of the site, actually the red line that runs kind of vertical on the left side is the town boundary. And so that would be Noblesboro over beyond the project site. And so, what is outlined in red in effect would be most of the land in Waldoboro in this area.
And is Controversy a private road?
Well, that's a question that we would like to find out from the town. We think that some part of it is, but as such as where the white line is, the white dashed line, but that a portion is defined on the town tax map up at the top above the word access. That's what we have question of.
Okay.
Question.
Please, go ahead.
On those two areas, it looks to me like it's like solid trees. And I was just wondering, what is your plan do you just clear cut that whole area? And if you do that, what is the effect of those wetlands? If you take a lot of trees down, the land will not hold the moisture as well. So do you have plans or anything going forward to predict what would happen if you change the topography?
I think I can best answer that. As it turns out, I'm a wetland scientist and a geologist as well. And so your question is very good. In terms of the topography, the shape of the land, the proposed project's really not going to change anything in that regard. There will be very limited earthwork. But to your point about the tree cover, yes, it's forested now, and it will be cleared for the installation of these solar panels. And so you're wondering about how that will change the runoff. And of course, the canopy does intercept precipitation and affects runoff, but a very basic requirement that we must meet with the state is to prepare this stormwater permit by rule application. And what that permit application does, it takes into account the change of vegetation that will occur so that any change in runoff will not create any problematic issues. And that state PBR permit application would become part of what we submit to the town of Waldoboro.
Okay. I have a question about in between the two sections is, there's wetlands that go in between them most of the way, and then there's a blue line of a course of water from that down to the rest of the water course. How are you going to cross that with your power from one section to the other?
Yes, great question. The plan is to use overhead lines there, I believe.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the planning board Um,
Well, I
then-
get,
then- Go ahead.
I don't know if this is really important, and it doesn't really say this in our ordinance right now because it's not very sophisticated as far as solar farms go. But in general, I'll just throw this out there. Do we want to look at large industrial scale solar farms from our roads? I say that because, you know, the south side is towards the entrance, towards the roads. It's not going to be so much of an issue here because it's not a highly traveled road and doesn't appear like it's going to be. But is this something that we want to think about screening in some way, something beyond, you know, a chain link fence? You know, what does it look like for the driving through Waldoboro to see this kind of enterprise? Am I wrong? Do we have any kind of description of screening for this type of thing, Max? It's kind of, you know, some people it's beautiful, some people not so much. Is it like a parking lot? Is it like you know, the work area of an industrial site? I mean, what is it?
It would follow the same standards of the buffer and screening requirements.
Mhm. Yep.
Performance standards. And if we wish to have more screening, then that's one thing, but I believe this is the end of the road for Controversy Lane. I think that was said earlier, correct?
Yes, there really is no driving past
That's correct.
this site.
This is a destination.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I happen to like them, but to see them, and I like to see windmills too. But I believe in the past that we've to solar projects, we've applied the standard buffer zones and setbacks associated with any industrial project. And I don't see any reason to deviate from that. You know, these are actually lower to the ground. If it was a industrial project that involved, you know, buildings, you would have the same setbacks, but you would have something that's tall and visible potentially on the site. So, you know, this, from my reading of it, and you can, perhaps one of you can comment, from the elevations, it does increase, you know, in the first, section, the first third or half of the lower section, the elevation rises, but the rest of it is, there's not a whole lot of elevation difference, and it looks to be pretty similar elevation to the abutting properties that have houses on them that are to the northeast. Is that correct, that elevations are about the same going northeast from the panel sites?
Yes. The biggest change in elevation is there at the very southern end of the southern yellow outline,
Okay.
which does not have really, there's really no view from it at the
Okay.
moment.
So in general, am I reading this right, that from the abutting homes, you're not going to be looking, you know, the solar panel arrays aren't going to be hovering over the houses, and you're not going to be looking down and seeing a valley vista of solar panels either. They're all pretty much at the same level with trees in between. Is that correct?
Yes,
Mm.
as far as we can tell from having walked the site and based on the elevation profile.
I'm sorry, the northern site is pretty flat with the rest of it. The southern site drops off 50 feet from one side to the other. And I
Right,
don't
but
know-
going down towards the road and the
Yeah,
train
it goes-
tracks where
Yeah,
there's,
it goes away, but you would be
Right.
kind of like a valley. Your valley description is a good one. You probably won't be able to see it.
Yeah.
Not flat.
And to address another point to that question about the appearance of the project. Once the
You are
solar-
fading. Up there you are. You're
Sorry.
coming in and out. Yeah.
Once the solar arrays are installed, then there'll be usually a pollinator mix of that would be added to the ground. So it would be, to bring back some natural vegetation. So it's not just a flat, bare piece of land with solar arrays. It looks more natural. And those are, maintained a couple of times a year so the vegetation doesn't grow to block the arrays.
Okay.
I didn't hear too much of that.
Yeah. You were still cutting out some.
I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Maybe.
I can reiterate what Kathy said. What she mentioned is that once the panels are down, it's not just going to be a barren dirt covered ground. The plan is to plant a seed mix or have grass grow up as tall as it can without interfering with any of the panels. So have more of a field of sorts that will have to be mowed and maintained a couple times a year to keep the grass from getting taller than the bottom of the panels. It won't just be dirt.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up, Kathy.
Mike, can I go back to the the business model, commercial model? You mentioned earlier that you'll enter into a 20-year fixed price contract with CMP to sell them power at a certain rate, right?
Right, not necessarily a fixed price contract, one that will coincide with current residential or commercial and industrial rates.
But CMP changes their rates, your rates would also change. It's the discount that would stay.
Correct. Yep.
Thanks.
So are there any other questions from the board members?
I'm all set.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Okay. So before I open it up to citizen comments and questions, Kathy, you mentioned that you had some questions that maybe we should get to. Maybe they'll illuminate something for later discussion. So did you want to go through those now?
Yes, I can. I'm hoping you can hear me.
So far, yep. Looks better.
Okay.
Sounds better.
Okay, good. I'll speak loudly. So I want to thank Max, who was very helpful when I called, and he provided me with your upcoming ordinance that will be approved on November 3rd, presumably. We hope. So I just want to verify that is indeed the version of the ordinance that we will be using to draft our application. And he also directed me to 3 articles that are applicable, which would be articles 7, 8, and 9 in the ordinance.
I can't hear anything.
I heard if the 2020 draft is what this will be applicable to. Then I heard articles 7, 8, and 9, which I assume is you asking those are the 3 that are going to be applicable to this application, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's a yes for me on both of those questions. Because,
okay.
We will start immediately using 2020 land use ordinance if it's approved on November 3rd. And the articles 7, 8, and 9 are the general performance standards we have now, but it is just broken into those 3 sections just to make it a bit more easier for planning board members and people in the public to find those specific categories. General performance items, ones relating to the environment, and then one relating to any parking or street access issues. So all 3 are applicable to this project.
Thank you, Max. Can you hear me?
Faintly, yes.
Okay, I don't know what's happening to my sound. I apologize. The other question had to do with requirement for a boundary survey. And
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that is set in stone, or is that something that could be waived?
Pat, what you might need to do is use your phone as a measure to use the audio, because I can't hear you at all, and I don't know about everyone.
I can't hear.
I'm having a hard time hearing Max as well.
Yeah,
I'll try and speak up a bit more.
that's better, Max. So Kathy, you were asking about the boundary survey and whether
Yes.
that could be waived?
Yes.
What we read of the existing ordinance as well as the proposed 2020 is that there is a suggestion it can be waived. And I think the spirit of that suggestion is if the project is distant from property lines, and if there's an indication, a reliable indication of where the property lines are. And we ask it at this point in time because it's not a small undertaking, particularly with respect to put lots of this size. And it's just something we want an understanding of before we go into this.
Yeah.
Some information we have in hand that we think is very reliable is that, this northeast property line that we speak of, there is a plan of record recorded in the Registry of Deeds that shows where the property line is located, and it is marked with iron rebar capped by the surveyor who prepared the work. So it's just a sort of a level of effort we want to understand whether it is necessary now or not.
Hmm.
Well, if you gave yourself plenty of setback.
Yeah, I think it's really the amount of setback. When were those boundary markers put in according to the plan that you have? Do you know when that was done?
I take me a second to retrieve that information, but I'll get that for you.
Because I mean, I certainly would be happy to waive all the other boundaries of the property, but the boundary lines to the abutters with homes is a little bit more problematic. If all of those boundaries can be accurately shown from the pins that are there.
Yeah, I know, Scott, it's amazing how many people think they know where their boundary lines are.
Here,
Some folks pick up those pins and move them. I would think that particular line, that northeast line, would need to be surveyed for the interest of all parties, all the abutters, to
Yeah.
make sure there's no disagreement on where that property line sits.
I have the plan now in front of me. It was prepared by Corner Post Surveying, right there in Walterboro. And the plan is for the Sunset Road subdivision. And it was recorded in the registry in 2005.
Hmm.
Yeah, that seems like that would be the most reliable boundary.
As I mentioned, it shows pins along the back line of those lots that occur on the northeast side of the public site. And just, you know, to sort of follow through with the information that we will be providing you with our permit application. Another part of the project team who's been very involved with our work is Wood Engineers, also from here in Maine, their offices in Portland. And they have surveyors in-house. They will be doing survey of the project site and in fact locating those pins to be displayed on our project plan. So a boundary survey proper is a very elaborate process of, it requires what they refer to as closing the loop. And it's necessary to survey around the entire property and to get the geometry correct. But with respect to this property line, it is well marked with meets and bounds, distance and azimuths. So that is, you know, where the adjacency will take place, and that will be very well defined on the plan.
I don't have a problem with them taking this risk. It's their risk, and like if the most obvious neighbors and probably the only neighbors already have their rear property lines marked. So I don't.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, but also I shared Jim's concern. I think that you're clearly going to have to do the work to make sure that the outline you're showing here, which includes the accuracy of your setbacks from what you're placing, what you're actually doing and clearing, is going to be very important. So as part of that, confirming the property markers along that line that you're measuring to, that you're showing on your plan, if you can present that as accurate location wise, I would find that okay. There's no need to do a boundary survey on the whole rest of the property.
Validate and confirm that northeast boundary.
Yeah.
Would be a logical thing. Yep.
We will do that. And I guess, you know, just some other, you know, points I would make. It is very customary on a survey plan to cite how other information was taken into account. And although that plan is not completed at the moment, I suspect that, you know, a reference will be made to this Sunset Road subdivision plan as being utilized to prepare the map. And lastly, you know, perhaps what could be done before we get too far along with the plan, perhaps we could come in and present that to the town planner and go over things in terms of sort of the approach that is being taken. And that might sort of provide a level of comfort that everyone is satisfied with.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Jim, you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, Kathy, from your?
Are you able to hear me?
I could hear that.
You have a blackboard.
Problem is sometimes you tend to come in and out, so I don't know.
Maybe if Max can hear me, he can let my phone into the meeting and I can talk that way.
I can't hear your.
Give that a try. Try your phone. Make sure you turn the mic off on your computer.
I need to be let into the meeting. My phone needs to be let into the meeting.
Max?
Max, can you do that?
The other one mute. So in turn off the audio for your computer and then turn the one on for your phone.
Okay, is that working?
Yes, but you gotta turn your computer mute. Mute your, there you go.
Whoa.
That was fun. Okay.
I am so sorry.
Hey, you're waking me up.
Oh, the pleasures of technology. So thank you, Cole, for explaining the boundary survey so well. And I think the last item that seems to be a little of a hanging item here is the controversy lane and whether or not that is a town road or a private road. And I'm not sure how we would find an answer.
So I quickly asked Daryl McKinney, the town assessor here, as well as for the tax assessor here, as well as Stan Wolf. The only thing a road will be a public road is if the town voted to approve it as such. And I don't believe there's a record of that happening. And I have page B, I'm sorry that I should know your last name, but Page in the chat saying that it's a private road. And so I'm going to confirm that, but it should be a private road. Hopefully that answers the question.
Isn't
Okay,
there,
so go ahead, Barbara.
isn't there someone from the neighborhood online with us who can answer that?
There are two people who are on Zoom right now, who I believe are from the neighborhood. We also have Gary, who also lives in the neighborhood. So we have 3 residents who are here to speak on the matter, but I have.
Okay, why don't we move, when we get to citizen comments, maybe we can cover that. Is there any other questions you have, Kathy, before we?
Well, look, can I back up just for a second?
Yeah.
What's the significance of it being a town or a private road? Does it make a difference?
Well, we would want to be sure that we had correct access. And also the road is in a little bit of a less than ideal condition for construction equipment.
Okay.
It may need to be improved to a certain extent. So we're just wanting to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so living on a private road, as I do, all the neighbors chip in and pay for its maintenance, plowing of it in the wintertime, etc. So one way to win favor with your new neighbors, if the project goes ahead, might be to fix up the road a little bit. Just a thought.
And just to follow up on Kathy's comment, and from our preliminary review, what we see from the Sunset Road subdivision plan is that it is a private road. And much like you suggest, Jim, those who abut it are responsible for its maintenance. What we're unclear about is, the length of that and whether it extends, out to Nobleboro Road. In particular, another reason for us asking this question is, where it will need to be extended. Are there town specifications, town requirements that it should be constructed to? So that's sort of the scope of why we're asking this question.
Max, can we answer the specifications question first, if it's a private road?
Right. So the specifications for what the road should be, the current ordinance, is found on page 427. And it always depends on the number of residents who use that road. And then for the new ordinance, it's going to be Article 9. So the question is if the applicant has to upgrade it or who's upgrading it? Can you repeat what the specific question is?
I think the questions were where does it become a private road? And if, on the sections that are a public road, what standards would they need to be upgraded to?
And it very well could be a private road, out to Nobleboro Road. We just, didn't know and thought the town might, and we're not, trying to suggest that if it is a town road, it needs to be maintained. We just sort of want to know the lay of the land, that's all.
Well, we'll all have to do some research, do some homework.
Well,
Sounds like.
as I said in the earlier bit, there would have had to been town vote to have any part of that controversy lane accepted as a public road. Again, I have a page in the little chat section telling me that the whole road is private. So I will confirm it, but sometime from 2005 to now, when there was a public vote, it should be all the way up to North Nobleboro Road.
Okay.
One other giveaway for that is all the mailboxes are located at North Nobleboro
Yeah.
Road. And
We-
the post office won't go down private roads.
Mhm.
It's always at the
Yeah.
last public road. So I'm pretty sure 99.9% that's a private road.
We saw that too, so just wanted to check, that's all.
One sec, Scott, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Max,
Okay.
is it possible for us to also see chat comments? I'm not seeing how to do that.
Those are comments that are privately sent to me.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
I
Is there-
had nothing further
Okay.
unless, Mike, you had anything to ask or?
No additional comments or questions.
Okay.
What's your timeline? I'm curious about what you're thinking your timeline is.
Yeah, great question. Like I said, we're working through the final interconnection agreement with Central Maine Power, just due to the difficulty of construction in the winter. It's likely that we wouldn't want to begin construction until the spring, if we can have all of our necessary state and local permits by that point. So be our preference to begin construction sometime maybe late spring, early summer of next year.
So starting construction also means the tree removal?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So if there's nothing else for the moment, I'd like to open it up to citizen comments. I understand we have a few people here, and I'd be happy to entertain questions or comments from the floor or the Zoom, depending on how you call it now. How do you want to do this, Max? We have some people who are muted, who I assume have to be unmuted to provide questions or comments.
Yes, for the meeting, I received an email from Tyler, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, Tyler Lupian. There were 6 questions regarding the layout, or just 6 questions about the application, so I can read those first, or we can open it up to just the citizens in general, and this can be saved for last.
Well, why don't you start with those? Maybe that'll cover what their questions were.
So the first question, if controversy is to be access to the solar farm, that road is already in disrepair in some spots. Will there be some pledge that the construction process will not further degrade the road? Once installed, will it constitute quote unquote normal or maintenance traffic? So it's a bit of a two-question part of there.
Yes, I got the first part, and regarding a pledge that we would not worsen the road. I can say that I know we'd have to upgrade the road in order to get construction equipment to the site. But once construction is complete, there wouldn't really be much traffic to and from the site. Maybe a pickup truck a handful of times throughout the year to do either grass cutting or routine maintenance, or if a section of the panels comes offline, having someone go out and do some minor repairs. But after construction, it's really it would really be minimal traffic to the property.
Okay. Second question. Was that road built to standards such that it will support those construction activities associated with this project? I don't know if that's specifically towards the town or if that's geared towards you. I haven't, because it's a private road, I haven't been on that road quite often. I can't really say too much of what standards are. But you guys have supposedly been on site, so you just mentioned about needing upgrades, so I assume that pretty much answers the question.
Yes, that road needs upgrading to accommodate construction equipment. Was that the gist of the question?
I believe so. Okay. Question 3, I believe, was answered in the beginning. How will the utilities be run? Is there sufficient space for the large wires and/or poles needed to carry the new power to North Snowmobile Road? You answered that early on, correct?
Yes, these would not be high tension lines. These would be standard 3-phase poles, like similar to the ones you'd see on North Nobleboro Road. So slightly larger than what's there now, just given the need for 3 wires. But by no means nothing out of the ordinary for a residential road.
Okay. Question 4, what household disruptions in electricity could the neighborhood expect?
I'm sorry, this is Cole Peters. I must drop off. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Cole.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I'm not an electrical engineer, but from what I have seen working on these projects, there really is not any impacts to folks, current electrical status.
That's what I would expect. Your 3-phase power is running out on its own feeders to the main line, and you're not going to be interfering with the incoming feeder that feeds everybody's domestic power. That's a 1-phase line, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll be converting the power to alternating current. So on lines like that, power continuously runs in both directions. But if anything, it will be increasing, or it will be strengthening the lines on Controversy Lane in order to accommodate that added electricity.
Just so everyone's aware, Sarah just joined the meeting.
Hi, Sarah. Oh, she's muted. That's okay. All right. Go ahead, Max. Next one.
Question 5. Will these sensitive wetlands and vernal areas be sufficiently protected?
I think we answered that early on, that the solar arrays have been sited so not to impact any sensitive wetlands or streams.
So.
I understand that
Okay.
excuse me, Scott, the answer you gave before too, that's almost out of our hands. In terms of the Waldeboro Planning Board, the state is going to rule on whether or not your development plans meet all of the environmental protection guidelines. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's
That
correct.
would be included in our stormwater PBR application.
I do have a related question to that. I'd asked before about how you're going to get power from one section to another, and you said overhead lines, but your installation and then maintenance equipment is going to have to cross between those zones. Where do you plan to do that?
We plan to have a small stream crossing there on that one section of stream in between the two arrays.
A stream crossing meaning like a bridge or
Kathy, how are they typically engineered? Is it a culvert?
Yes,
okay.
obviously DEP would have to approve what was proposed, but it can be a culvert.
Yeah,
correct.
okay. But that'd be part of the DEP approval process is how you plan to do
That's
that.
correct.
And that would
Yep.
then appear in that would show in what you're going to apply to us in your formal application.
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay. And then the last question I have from Tyler, in terms of weed and tree control, will the maintenance plan include herbicides?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that one, Max.
Well, I'm reading it. In terms of weed and tree control, will the maintenance plan include the use of chemical herbicides?
I'm not sure. I have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, please get back to us. I think that would be a good one to follow up on to find out about that. There's also I think maybe Sarah could comment on this, but there's a state requirement for notification if people request that. So since this was asked, I think that would be an important thing to make sure you've got covered.
Sure, I'll look into that, and we'll have that in our formal application package.
Right. Especially also that would be something to, I mean, preferably, I think it would be to avoid such a thing entirely, especially since the wetlands are right there. So.
Right. I don't believe there are any in the current plans. I just can't say for certainty right now without having it in front of me.
Yep. Good question. Okay. So Max, can you lead us through any other citizen comments of the people that are on Zoom or there at the office? However you want to call on them is fine with me.
So if there are any citizens on Zoom, you can turn on the camera and just raise your hands and we can call on you when there's sort of some dead space. But right now, you have someone in the audience here physically. Do you have any questions?
Actually, I do. I have some questions and comments. My name is George Fernald. I'm a resident of Waldeboro and also an abutter to Controversy Lane. I live in that section of subdivisions that's been discussed, and quite a bit of personal information that might be valuable to the presenters and the board as well. I have a preliminary question. I noticed that during this discussion, the presenters emphasized that these are all very preliminary statements that are being made tonight. So what I'm wondering is, are any of these representations that have been made tonight binding?
I don't believe that anything is binding, and wouldn't be until we submit our formal application that would have to be approved by the planning board. Am I correct in that, members of the planning board?
I think that's accurate.
We always do our best to keep our word, but technically speaking, no, I don't think anything here is binding.
Because
Yeah, Dave.
because also, just to answer part of that question, George, is that the board, because this is a pre-application and not official, the board isn't actually voting to approve anything tonight or to deny anything. So since there's no approval, there's no binding list. For example, we would often have a list of additional requirements. Typically the applicant presents a written plan, which is then part of their commitment. And then often the board might ask for additional commitments or give waivers or anything, and that would go into the public record and become part of what was approved or not. So that would be the time. The official application and that public meeting would be the time for the applicants to make, official commitments.
Thank you for that answer. In that case, I have several comments that might be of benefit to the board and the presenters. Now, in respect to the property being considered for this project, is the board and the presenters aware that this land that's presented on the map, part of a larger piece of land that's listed as a contiguous property on the MLS sale? And if this is being divided from that larger piece, would that constitute a subdivision?
Yes, that's a great question. And George, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name.
Fernald, F-E-R-N-A-L-D.
Yes, these two parcels are part of an additional or of a total of 4 acres. I'm sorry, 4 parcels that were on listed on the market. The 2 other parcels are to the north, but we have no intention of developing those. However, they are part of our option to purchase the property. And again, our intentions to not develop those are for a number of reasons. One, they're really not accessible from this piece due to what would be significant wetland crossings and our desire to stay under the 20-acre threshold.
Thank you for that answer. And in regard to the significant wetlands, I presume the board is aware that this body of water that was described as a small stream sometimes is actually a raging torrent. It's a part of the Pemaquid watershed, and it's actually called the Pemaquid River. It comes out of Tobias Pond. Now, there's places in this land that's delineated for the solar project where this watershed splits into several small streams, but still is a primary stream through that area.
I'm sorry, maybe I was unclear about what I noted as a small stream. There is a larger stream there to the south that's shown in blue on the plan. The small stream I referenced was actually one that's really not shown on the plan, but it's there in between the 2 yellow outlines.
Well, thank you for that response. Returning now to the controversy lane, there was a question as to whether or not this is a private road. Under the land use ordinance that's been in effect for a number of years here in Waldoboro, any subdivision that's approved by the town, the road can either be presented for public ownership or be retained as private ownership. In this case, if you were to look at the original plans, if this was done piecemeal, these subdivisions were piecemeal over a period of 8 years. You'll note that on each road, they're designated as private. What that essentially means is that they're not private roads, they're private ways under state law. And what that means is the town has a public easement through all of these ways. They're not private. They can't be gated off from the public. All the public has access to this whole road complex. And with regard to the roads, because of their usage, there are more than 20 residences on this road complex. This constitutes a major street under the land use ordinance. And the requirements, the construction requirements for major streets are very clear. Unfortunately, because it was a piecemeal development, the town never enforced the construction standards for this set of roads, because as they were piecemeal together, this slipped by. I'm sure you're all familiar with the fact that when a subdivision is approved, the town has to either prepare a road association agreement that specifies how the road will be maintained, who will pay for it, and how it will be constructed. This is supposed to be done before the lots are sold. In this case, the town never prepared this road association agreement, nor did the developer. It's an alternative. Either one can be done, but it has to be approved by the town. So this set of roads is a pretty sketchy condition. They were never brought up to any standards for major streets. The culverts are destroyed in a number of places. The road was down to base rock. In some places, the original developer actually used old railroad ties from the existing Central Maine Railroad as part of the road base. So this gives you a flavor of what's gone on with that road. It might be a significant issue with respect to this project, because this is a fairly heavily used road. It's the only access to this residential complex. I hope that helps with the how the road is defined. So it's a private way. It can be gated. It's not a private road. It has a public easement. The town is not responsible for maintaining it because it's a subdivision road and not accepted by the town. So I think that lays out the parameters of how the road got there and what its present state is. Can you say that?
Again, I said that I need to,
Yeah.
I need to verify that. John Dangle is one person I can need to speak with.
There is one other issue in regard to the property that's being transferred, specifically the property for the solar array. This is part of a fairly ancient parcel that was transacted back in the 1800s and 1900s. It has no modern survey. Surveys were piecemeal through this area for the subdivisions. They weren't done all at the same time, and they were done by different surveyors. I can tell you from my own experience and my observations that pins have been moved in that subdivision area. My wife and I are abutters on Controversy Lane, and we've had 2 pins actually removed. And part of Controversy Lane actually is now on our property, according to my measurements. Pursuant to state law, in this subdivision, the developer did not retain his fee interest in the road when he constituted the development. If the developer doesn't retain the fee interest, then the road upon the subdivision being approved reverts to the centerline ownership of all the abutters. So in this case, I own to the center line a portion that proceeds up to the intersection of Controversy Lane and Stagecoach Road, including part of that intersection. And a portion of the road also up Stagecoach Road, because our property is a corner lot. There are a number, what I bring this up for is there are a number of property issues that might arise with respect to what's done with the road, how it's done, and if power lines are being placed through the 3-phase power lines, as well as the initial single phase that already exists, that definitely could have an effect because CMP does not have a pass-through from North Noble Road to the intersection of Stagecoach and Controversy. There's actually a very original line runs down Pierpont Lane along the old Central Main Railroad tracks, and its intersecting pole is at the intersection of Stagecoach Road and Controversy Lane. That's where all the lines break and go in different directions from that point. They do not go out to North Noble Road from that point. If that's helpful to anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Fernald. That was very helpful. Can I ask, are you the sort of the third house from the proposed project site on Controversy? Is that you?
No, we are the corner lot of Stagecoach Road and Controversy Lane.
Oh, okay, a little further down. Got you, okay,
It doesn't show on this map that we have here.
right.
We'd be a little further to the northeast where that intersection lies. But we're generally familiar with the area because we walk this road every day. In fact, we happened to walk this project area last week. And because we had a drought, the water course is completely dried up at this point. Out of Tobias Pond. But we've seen it in 6 or 7 feet deep at times, and moving quite rapidly, moving a lot of water.
Coincidentally, I was also out on the site last week and I also observed a completely dry stream and was interested that you're in your comment that it had been or can be a roaring stream. It certainly was not that.
It's the first time in 15 years that I've seen it dry.
Yeah, completely dry.
Yeah, I have a wet section on my property that we had 3 inches of rain yesterday and the ground is still solid down there today. It's ridiculous how far behind we are. Well, thank you, Mr. Fernald. That's all helpful information. I don't think I've captured any action items for us, for the board or for the applicants out of this. Other than you asked a question of whether it's a subdivision that I think Max can maybe look into. Is that fair?
One question for George, if I might. George, I'm just curious. I don't want to put you on the spot, but in the opening gambit, are you kind of for the project? I mean, are you feeling, because you're right there, so are you feeling like this is a positive thing for you, or?
I appreciate that question. My background is in electrical technology, and I believe in clean power. I believe in solar power, although I understand its drawbacks. In this particular case, I have no opposition, providing it doesn't affect our quiet enjoyment of our property. If it disturbs our tranquility, then I definitely would be averse to this particular project. This is an unusual project in terms of the way it's sited. The existing project that's on North Noble Road basically is right beside the road in an area that's already been timbered off. Quite a different project. So I'm not opposed to the project. I'm just very concerned that it's done in the proper way in terms of routing the lines, how the road is treated. I'm concerned about the buffer between the people on Sunset Ridge because most of those trees are hardwood trees. During the winter time, they don't lose their foliage. There might need to be an extended buffer on that line. And as I mentioned, that entire property in back there was done with an archaic system of meets and bounds where the lines don't comport with anything that can be found today.
Well,
Okay.
thank you, George, for your comments. Really appreciate hearing from you tonight.
So any questions or comments from the citizens that are on Zoom?
Hi. Yeah, I see.
Hello, I can see you, Paige. You need to unmute.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I also live on Controversy. My name is Paige Basso, and I agree with everything that George says. Because I was kind of confused because our lines do not go out all the way to North Nobleboro Road. It ends, before North Nobleboro Road. So our lines go what I used to know as Wickham Road and then to Pier Point. I've been back here, I think, since 2005. So I'm one of the original homeowners. My main concern, like George says, I mean, the road, us homeowners, some of us chip in, some don't. There's no homeowners association back here. I mean, my husband has bought gravel and, filled in some potholes in front of our house. I know there was extension, they fixed the road going up the hill, a homeowner. I mean, the road to me was never built to town standards, just like, George has stated. And I think people need to come out and take a look, what, the road looks like now. But I guess my main concern is all the traffic that would be coming in, during the initial phase and the road.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Paige. Yeah, there will be some traffic during construction, and again, we'll have to upgrade the road and help keep it maintained for those purposes. But once we're constructed, it'll be really minimal traffic, and we'd be happy to speak with the homeowners in the area, to see how we can stay involved in that ongoing maintenance.
Thank you, Paige.
Anyone else? Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
I remember how we discussed, I'm just curious, on the last solar project that we looked at, they talked about raising the bottom of the chain link fence for animals to be able to move through the property. Do you have any kind of ways that you're thinking about for mitigating, allowing nature to take its course?
Yeah, of course. That's that type of fence has become fairly standard throughout the industry at this point. A lot of folks are using it. It's definitely something I think we can work with.
And why is it as high as it is? Because of deer or because of why? What is the height that you determined to put around this?
Yeah, the height of the fence is National Electric Code standard.
Oh.
Because we are technically, an electric generating facility. We have to adhere to their codes, which unfortunately is a 7-foot tall chain link fence.
Okay.
Oh, my deer fence is 8, so.
You've got energetic deer, Scott.
Well.
But does it work? That's the question.
If they get hungry, it does work, actually.
That's good.
Yeah, so far, doesn't keep the catbirds out, but.
God, I see Carrie has opened up
Yes.
her camera. Carrie, you want
Yes,
to join us?
I was going there. Carrie Lupian, please go
Hi,
ahead.
everyone. Thank you. So my question is, looking at the large piece of property that this entails, realizing that you're only going to be putting solar panels on a small portion of it, is your intention to make the entire property private, or will you consider it open for public access? There's a lot of snowmobile trails, recreation. There's a lot of people who mountain bike out there and hike out there. I mean, do you plan on locking the whole piece of property up, or is it something that you'd consider putting into like a conservation easement or allowing for public recreation on?
Yeah, great question, Carrie. Thanks for bringing that up. I personally think that sounds like a great idea. we don't have any plans right now. We haven't, we haven't officially purchased the land yet. And we're really in the initial stage of our plans, as you can see from the map there that we provided. So, we're open to having those sorts of discussions about, what other parts of the land can and can't be used for down the road. We really had not gotten that far with the remaining acreage.
Okay, thank you.
Great, that's good to hear. Carrie's question is an excellent one. And you said there's currently snowmobile trails on there. Is that part of the network that
Yes.
currently exists?
Yep, it's
So
part of the network, and it's
okay.
maintained by the snowmobile club, the snow crawlers, I think, out of Waldeboro.
Yep.
And it's accessed if you go up Stagecoach and you go across, I think it's Turkey Lane at the very top, the northern end of that property. It
Yep.
it crosses the northern part of that. It really is more like it's more than a small stream, to be honest. It crosses that on the northern part, and it heads back out into Nobleboro. So it's a pretty extensive snowmobile trail, and like I said, people ski it and hike on it and spend a lot of time out there. It gets heavily used, and I don't know, given all of the wetlands, how you'd possibly reroute that snowmobile traffic. But it's personally, I support this project. I believe, like George had said, that I think clean energy is good. I believe in having a solar farm could be a good neighbor. My concerns are the road, maintenance of the road, use of the road, traffic on the road, the wetlands I'm concerned about, that river, and what is going to be done to protect that. And then also just access. I think 100 acres of land is a really big piece of property to tie up for private use when people are using it right now. So,
yeah.
Sure. Great points, Carrie. And again, would like to point out that I know the stream that everyone has been speaking of, and that's not where we had been talking about putting our culvert. That's further to the south.
Sure. So relative to that question, if you can address like the public access, I know from a corporate perspective that is potentially a challenge, but it would be great if there was some way to put that in to maintain the public access to that part of the property. There's potentially a number of different ways of doing that in terms of easements and land conservation trust and all kinds of things that are potentially feasible. Right here on my street, there was a lot of property, including a house that was bought by the DIY network that renovates houses, and they donated one whole side of 65 acres on one side of the road, and donated that to one of the local land trusts, and is now part of the trail. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it, that if you can give that some consideration, whatever you want to propose. But I think keeping that as part of the application, putting that in your application would be great if that was possible. Jim?
Harry, I may have missed the answer, and you've gone black on us, but do any of the existing trails run through the area that's planned to be developed? Do you know from what you saw on the map earlier?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that question?
So we've got the two dotted yellow areas that will be developed and fenced off. Do any of the existing trails run through those, or
Yes.
are they around it?
Yep, the main one would go right through that that northern piece of the
Northern piece.
solar panel. Go
Ooh.
right through that. Yep. And
Oh.
again, that's why I say I don't know how you'd reroute that, because there's wetlands to the north, and then you'd have the solar panel to the south. So I'm not sure how you do that, but again, it's essentially blocking off a really beautiful piece of nature. So
If the trail runs through that section, Carrie, where does it does it cross the water course there, or how does it get there?
crosses. If somebody wants to pull up the map again, I can show you or describe it where it goes.
Yeah, Max, could you do that for us?
Okay,
how good
so
Max is.
the Snowmobile Trail right now would come off of that purple line at like 1 o'clock at the top there. It cuts through the northern tip of that solar, that first solar farm, if you will, on the top. And it really intersects the bottom of the wetland green and then the river at the bottom, if that makes sense, right? Kind of in the middle there. There's a culvert there. And then everything south of that is where the river really opens up. But there's a culvert there where it crosses. And then it kind of meanders down through the property, hitting most of those wetlands, vernal pools. And then it eventually comes down to the southern tip where it crosses the railroad tracks. And then it goes over the railroad tracks, it crosses the power lines, and then it, eventually you can take a couple of different directions to either head out to the Waldoboro Industrial Park or out to Nobleboro. But it definitely in the wintertime, it gets a lot of traffic from snowmobilers, people who are using it to access Cook's Pond or Jefferson, or people who are trying to access Route 1. So I don't know if that description is clear for everyone, but the Snowmobile Trail would go right through basically the O and the L of the word solar in that top.
Okay. There's a vague purple line there that looks like it's going right where you're describing. I wonder if
No, that's not it. No,
That's
not it.
that's the parcel line separating the two parcels there.
All right.
When we were out there, we did try to find what we could see was we thought was an old road on that map, and I think, Carrie, it might have been the Snowmobile Trail we were trying to find, and we couldn't find it. But it is a beautiful spot out there.
Yeah, it's a pretty
Very
good,
pretty.
I would say it's probably about a 6-foot wide trail that's clear. In the summer, fall, it doesn't really get maintained too much, but you can certainly hike on it. But in the wintertime, it's groomed regularly, and it's utilized by, like I said, skiers and hikers and snowmobilers. So I know that would be tough to have that work with the existing plan as you've laid it out, but I would feel better as a supporter of preserving the outdoors and a neighbor if there was some plan in place for you to be open to letting people use this property and recreate out here in a respectful way.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Okay, is there anyone else? I can't see everybody anymore. Maybe you could take that down, Max. Is there anyone else who had any questions or comments?
I don't see any.
I only have one question. Is this project going to rely or applying for MPUC funds?
What was that?
Is this going to apply to MPU?
MPUC funds?
Yeah, MPUC funds.
No, we have no intention to apply for MPUC funds.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, there being none, I will close out this pre-application discussion. I want to thank all of the citizens for their comments and questions. I think they were very helpful, and to Mike and Kathy for coming and going through it with us, and just keep working with Max, and we'll be interested to see where this goes. I think you've got a lot of things to consider from this, but if there's any follow-up questions or anything, just route them through Max and we'll take them as they come. Did you have anything you needed to add, Max?
Nope, pretty much nailed everything on the head, Scott.
Okay.
If you
So
want
we
thoughts
really-
on that, excuse me, if you want thoughts on that snowmobile trail, I believe Tony Lash, one of the town general contractors, that he sort of heads up the snow crawlers. He might be able to help you with what's there and what might be able to be done to reroute it.
Yeah, and that's a good suggestion, Jim, because it would be nice if you don't have to wait till the snow falls to find out exactly where the trail is, because he could probably just show you.
If anybody could figure out a way to reroute it, Tony can, so.
That is also true. He could fix the road too.
Sounds like a good guy to know.
Yes, he is, actually. Great.
Look forward to it.
Well, thank you for your time.
Great.
This is very informative, very helpful. And we really appreciate you spending all this time and helping us.
Well, we
Look
appreciate you
forward to the
coming to
final
us.
application.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Thanks very much. So
Thank
we'll
you.
move on
Thank
to
you.
other business. Thank you very much. So for the board, the rest of the business we have is we've got a lot of meeting minutes that I know it's already 10 of 8, but I would really like to get through this. And then I just have one other thing after that. Is there anything else besides minutes that we need to discuss tonight?
I thought we were doing the campground.
We are not.
Oh, good.
So Scott, if you want to go ahead and say it, go ahead.
So are we all set? Can we run through these meeting minutes? We have 4 meetings to approve the minutes of.
Sure, and I'll.
Do we have a quorum?
We do. We have you, me, Barbara, Sarah, and Johnny's
Okay.
on site, and
Sorry,
we have our
Sarah's
new
sites.
member, but then, we can only vote.
Yep.
We can vote on the minutes for which we attended. So I'm just going to roll through them in chronological order and hope that everybody's ready with their questions and comments if they have any. I have the meeting minutes of July 8th, for which our attendees are Sarah, Johnny, Jim, and myself. And I had already submitted all my edits are already incorporated in this version that you last have. Are there any questions or comments or edits to be made to these meeting minutes?
Don't have any.
Not hearing any? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 8th meeting?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
So all those in favor signify aye in some way. And I can't see Sarah, and she's muted, so.
And Barbara abstains. I wasn't here.
Right,
Wasn't
so Sarah,
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was unmuted.
Oh, that's
you,
okay. Yep. So are you okay with this?
yes.
Okay, meeting minutes approved. Susan's talking, but I can't hear you either. You're muted also, Susan. There you go. Oh,
Well,
yep. Nope. You've
That's
been
the one
hitting it
time.
on and off multiple times, so there you go. It's too fast for you. There you go.
It says I'm muted.
Now you're fine.
No, we can hear you.
We can hear you now.
question is, who seconded that motion to approve the minutes of July 8th as presented? I have Jim as the first. The
Right.
maker.
John.
Johnny.
John, sorry.
Yeah.
John.
John's waving. It was John.
Who was the
It was,
second?
it was Johnny.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the meeting minutes of July 15th. Where the attendees were myself and Barbara and Sarah and Johnny and Jim. So we had our pretty much full complement at that meeting. Any edits or comments on those minutes? There being none, could I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So
moved.
move over, Jim.
So,
All right, go ahead.
so Jim made the motion. Barbara, are you seconding?
I'll second it. All right.
Okay, and Barbara is seconding.
Yep.
Anything on these? Okay, being moved and seconded, all those in favor of approving these minutes as presented signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. There, August 12th. Meeting of August 12th, attendees were Barbara, Johnny, Jim, and myself. This was on the expansion of the veterinary clinic. Pretty brief meeting. Any edits or changes to that? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion made by Barbara. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jim seconds. Anything else on this? All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? This is fantastic. Now we have the meeting minutes of September 16th. Attendees again, Barbara, Sarah, Johnny, Jim, and myself. This was on the new land use ordinance, in which there was a lot of detailed edits. So it was pretty long minutes. Thank you, Susan, for that. Are there any edits or questions or comments on those minutes?
Are you sure I was there?
I am sure because you, I remember you being there and making some comments, and
Right.
when we were talking about the marine
Oh,
park
spring.
on Dutch Neck Landing. I remember you pointing out how many residents of Dutch Neck were at the meeting. So you were there.
I think that was me.
Yeah, that wasn't me. Sorry.
But I think you were, Sarah.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
It's not in my calendar. I didn't note it in my calendar. That's funny.
Huh. Well, Susan, I trust Susan's minutes as well, because she was looking at the Zoom video of the meeting anyway, weren't you, Susan, when you made your minutes?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
So it's hard to hide from Susan.
Yeah, Sarah, it was the LUA meeting was Monday, and then we met like Tuesday or Wednesday, right? That week. It was
Yeah.
brutal. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So any edits to this? May I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
Johnny,
So moved.
Thanks, John. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Johnny,
motion made and seconded. What's that?
Johnny is the maker.
Yep,
Affirmative.
We're trying to share the wealth here, Johnny.
That's okay, it's okay. I was kind of getting a little drowsy.
yeah,
He was only there until 8 o'clock, according to the minutes.
yes.
Can he still be the maker of the, to approve the minutes of a meeting that lasted until almost 9?
Yeah.
Okay,
So all those in favor of this motion say, signify aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. That's the most efficient
Are you happy?
10 minutes. I'm very happy to get those.
So I have a request, but only if you can do it really like Reader's Digest version of the
Okay.
select board meeting discussing the part about Dutch Neck and how that was left. I don't really follow the details.
What select board meeting about Dutch Neck?
The select board meeting after the LUA ordinance stuff went through the planning board, there was a select board meeting,
Yeah,
accepted the ordinance changes, but wasn't there a discussion about commercial versus industrial at Dutch Neck?
if there was, I did not hear about it. I
Oh.
wasn't there. I
There
wasn't,
I thought you were.
There are minutes of select board meetings and I take those minutes and I
Okay.
refer to those minutes.
Think of
For some reason, I thought you were there, Scott.
no, I wasn't.
think of that
Could you send those to me, Susan?
They are on file at the town office. Max can send them to you faster than I can.
Okay,
I don't know what date this meeting is, but I suggest that Max is your better source.
Yeah.
What date is this meeting that we're talking about?
It would be September,
It would be
Right.
the 8th or the 22nd. They meet.
would
on
have to be the 22nd, because it would
22nd.
have had to have been after our meeting on the 16th.
Okay, well, I can send you what I've got, but I think Max can also do
Oh,
it.
that would be great. Yeah,
Cool.
thank you. That would be helpful.
Thank
Well,
me.
if you can just send me the version you have, I'm sure that's fine. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Max, was any part of the ordinance changes withdrawn from what's going in front of the public vote?
select board doesn't have that type of authority. They only really approve any grammatical, or they only can make like a little grammatical change or just how the warrant worded. I think the only thing I can think of is when we had our September 16th meeting, there was the discussion of revisiting the commercial parts.
Right.
And I think I just said during the meeting, they do want to prove there is a condition of we need to revisit this after the November election. That's what I just said. It wasn't really an official thing done by the select board. It was just me saying, just keep this in mind. We want to get it approved, but we also want to talk a bit more about this, hoping that it's already approved in November. Because if I remember how the September meeting went, there was this back and forth of what's considered commercial in the commercial fishery zone. And we wanted to still approve the ordinance because it was removing the industrial use, but there was still some question about what commercial meant.
Mhm.
Changing the definition, this could be end up removing commercial from that zone. It was a bunch of things that we just didn't know at the time, and we wanted to move on with that night. So I believe how it was agreed was that the planning board would still make the recommendation to approve the land use ordinance, but with the understanding that in a future meeting, possibly in December or January, we would take a look at this again and try and word that area out a bit better, possibly for the June one.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Something like that going on. Okay.
All right, so it's late. I'm about ready to call for adjournment, but before we do, I wanted to again welcome Jeff to the planning board. And in the interest, normally, Jeff, I like to, and I would like you to give us just a brief biography so we can get to know you. Normally, I'd ask everybody on the board to do the same to give you an idea of who we are. But we usually try to end by 8, so maybe we can do that in a future meeting. But if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, I'd appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, just to start, thanks for having me here. It's an honor. lived on Depot Street since 2003. Was raised in Warren, so I went to Madoc. So pretty much out here. And I'm in construction. I build houses, and have an interest in our town's history and its future. I'd like to learn more about this process that happens here, and if I can both learn something and hopefully add something at some point from either my experience or my observations, I'd be happy to do that. In the meantime, I'll observe, but happy to be here in the meantime.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you. Great. Is there anything else we need to cover tonight?
Nope, I don't have anything now. I am working on a guidance document for future remote meetings. I think I brought this up in a earlier meeting, and I would have gone into more detail tonight, but as you said, the clock struck 8 o'clock, about 5. Let's talk about it in a future meeting.
Okay, much appreciated. Okay, that being the status of our meeting, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
My turn. So moved.
Is there a second?
I second it.
There being no debate on a motion to adjourn, all those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
All